There's an enlightening and, at times, slightly painful exercise one can do by oneself to learn a bit more about the origins of how one feels and behaves. It's a journey inward, a quiet conversation with parts of yourself you may not have spoken to in years. It begins with a simple, honest step. First, I want you to find a quiet moment, maybe with a cup of tea or just sitting by a window. Take a deep breath. Now, pick out something emotional that you know, in your heart, you're not very good at now. Be truly honest with yourself. No one else is listening. Think about a recurring pattern or a struggle that leaves you feeling frustrated. And then, write it down on a sheet of paper. Perhaps for you, it's staying calm. Maybe you find yourself easily agitated, your heart racing at the slightest inconvenience, living in a state of constant, low-grade anxiety. Or maybe it's taking pride in yourself. You might achieve something wonderful at work or in your personal life, but instead of celebrating, you immediately dismiss it, feel like a fraud, or point out your own flaws. The feeling of good enough is always just out of reach. It could be about trusting others. Maybe you keep people at arm's length, assuming they will eventually let you down, or you find yourself sabotaging relationships just as they start to get serious because vulnerability feels too dangerous. Or perhaps it's something as subtle as truly missing people who go away. You might say goodbye to a loved one for a trip and feel a strange numbness, an inability to connect with the feeling of longing, because the emotion itself feels threatening. We often observe these traits in ourselves with a mixture of puzzlement and deep embarrassment. We ask ourselves those heavy, looping questions. Why am I like this? Why can't I just be more normal, more like everyone else seems to be? What's wrong with me? These questions don't lead to answers. They just lead to more self-criticism, reinforcing the idea that we are somehow broken. But you are not broken. To find a way to some real answers, let's continue to the second and most crucial part of this exercise. Take the trait you wrote down and insert it into the following sentence. How safe would it have been for you to do this in your childhood? Let that question sink in. Let's walk through it together. How safe would it have been for you to stay calm in your childhood? Now, try to reflect deeply on why it might have been genuinely unsafe to be calm back then. Perhaps it didn't feel safe because the environment was unpredictable. Maybe someone in the house was drinking heavily, and your childhood was spent walking on eggshells. To be calm would have been foolish. You had to be on high alert, listening for the sound of keys in the door, the change in tone of voice, ready to make yourself small and invisible. Hypervigilance wasn't a disorder, it was your shield. Let's try another. How safe would it have been for you to take pride in yourself in your childhood? Maybe it didn't feel safe to shine. Perhaps a parent or sibling was obsessively jealous, and your achievements were met not with praise, but with resentment or punishment. Your success might have been seen as a threat to their own fragile ego. So, you learned to play small. You learned that to be celebrated was to be targeted. Downplaying your accomplishments wasn't a lack of confidence. It was a strategy for maintaining peace and emotional safety in your own home. What about trust? How safe would it have been for you to trust in your childhood? Maybe it didn't feel safe because a key figure in your life, someone who was supposed to protect you, was cruel or deeply unreliable. Promises were constantly broken. The person who was meant to be your safe harbor was the source of the storm. As a child, you learned a painful but logical lesson. Trust leads to betrayal, and hope leads to disappointment. Building walls wasn't an act of coldness. It was a brilliant feat of self-preservation. And finally, how safe would it have been for you to truly miss people who were absent? This is a profound one. Maybe the pain of a parent leaving, whether for a day or forever, would have been so overwhelming that your young heart couldn't possibly have handled it. To allow yourself to feel the full depth of that absence, that longing, might have felt like it could break you completely. So your mind, in its infinite wisdom, shut the feeling down. That numbness wasn't a flaw. It was a mercy. It was an emotional tourniquet applied to a wound that was too deep to tend to at the time. Do you see the powerful pattern here? In all of these cases, what in later life we label as a problem or a flaw actually started out as a very clever, necessary, and often brilliant protective strategy. It was the intelligence of your younger self finding a way to survive a difficult situation. We are often more mysterious to ourselves than we should be because we fail to see this vital connection. We judge the adult for the coping mechanisms of the child. Much of what we do that looks odd, self-defeating, or unusual in our adult lives is really just a relic of a survival tactic that made a whole lot of sense in childhood. It's a loyal soldier still standing guard, unaware that the war is long over. The entire point of waking up to the origins of these protective strategies is that we can then finally learn to see that it is no longer necessary to hold on to them. The armor that once protected you from the arrows of your past is now preventing you from feeling the warmth of the sun in your present. It has become a cage. This journey of self-understanding isn't about blaming the past or the people in it. It's about liberating your present. It's about looking at that younger version of yourself, not with judgment, but with immense compassion and gratitude. Can you picture that child? Can you see them navigating their world with the tools they had? Thank them. Thank them for their cleverness, for their resilience, for getting you through a difficult time. And then, with gentle resolve, you can let them know that their watch is over. You can say, "Thank you for protecting me. You did an incredible job, but I'm the adult now. I'm safe. I can handle it from here." There is no reason to subconsciously fail at work anymore to avoid a specter of jealousy from a long time ago. We can afford to let ourselves miss people when they go, because we now have the strength to know they'll be back, or the resilience to handle the loss if they don't. We can finally, carefully dare to feel, to trust, and to love. We need not continue our blind loyalty to our past protective strategies once we understand the particular circumstances that once made them so necessary and that now, thankfully, no longer apply. You have the power and the permission to write a new chapter, one defined not by the echoes of old fears, but by the music of a newfound freedom. You can set down the heavy shield and learn to dance. If this message of understanding, compassion, and healing resonates with you, and you'd like to explore more ideas for living a more conscious and fulfilled life, please consider subscribing to our channel. It's a privilege to be on this journey of discovery with you. Thank you for listening.